Hej allihopa! Nu kommer vi att köra vårt webbinar runt Business Technology Standard. Vi har ett antal internationella deltagare så vi kommer behöva ha den här på engelska. Just to make sure that everybody hears, can you please raise your hand in Zoom to see if we get some signals back? Yeah, you hear. Okay, so what is BTS and why is that important? Well, basically, BTS is a framework for operational excellence. A framework without purpose is not a good framework. So the only idea behind this one is to have operational excellence in your IT department together with your business representatives. Sofigate has, together with 200 companies in the Nordic region, created a framework that we call BTS. And as you can see on the slide, it's evolved over time. And looking back 10 years, it was all about aligning IT with business. Then it went forward for running IT like a business, developing business capabilities. And now we're at the stage where we're trying to generate business with technology. And this framework is shared as open source on a link that I will show later. So it's free of charge, co-created with 200 customers, and it's actually put in a separate company, which is NGO. In a nutshell, this is what it contains. And I will go through the different parts in detail in the coming slides, but also show you the link and how you navigate around in the link. So on the left-hand side of the slide, you see the mindset model. And what it says in a nutshell is that we all need to modernize our technology backbone. And of course, we need to build a digital frontline to make sure we have a customer experience and loyalty leadership. And we do that as a team by transforming business capabilities. And the tricky thing here is to keep the zipper going upwards and working as a joint team, creating business value by new business capabilities. If you believe in that mindset to create operational excellence, you might look for an operating model. Referring to Gartner research, the most important competitive advantage at the moment is to have a joint operating model to address the CEO and the CIO agenda. For the operating to run, you need a capability model. So the operating model relies on the number of capabilities that you as an organization need to host, either in your own organization, including business and IT, or with your partners. And of course, you need to break that down into roles and responsibilities to address the different capabilities in the operating model in the mindset. So this is what it is in a nutshell. So Janet, can you please help me open the link? So as you can see in the top of the screen, this is the link, managebt.org. And as I said, this is open source, available for all of you guys. And over 200 organizations in the Nordic region run this as the knowledge capital for operational effectiveness and operational excellence in this operating model. You can either navigate through the different menus, as you can see here, or you can navigate in the different parts in the quick navigation pane. And everything is, of course, hyperlinked into details. So going back to the presentation, so what I will do in the coming slides is to go through the different parts of the operating model and highlight the newest additions in the latest version, and then loop back into the website for some more details. So this is the mindset model in a bit more resolution. So I think every organization needs to modernize the technology backbone. And we talk a lot about cloud-based solutions. We talk about application consolidation. We're talking about going from application governance into service governance. So there are many aspects of modernizing the technology backbone. And of course, trusting the most innovative platforms in the world, like ServiceNow, Workday, Salesforce, the Oracle NetSuite, SAP S/4HANA, etc. And if you would like to read more about that, you can rely on Forrester and Forbes, who rates the most innovative companies in the world every year. The reason for that is, of course, to be more cost effective and also making sure that quality and throughput in the applications is improved. On the left-hand side, you see the digital frontline. It actually has two different parts. Of course, you have the customer experience, but you also have the employee experience. So all stakeholder experience is important. And all that is done in a zipper model to transform business capabilities to make more revenue with innovation. This is the operating model in a bit more detail. And of course, you see the core of the demand portfolio and the development portfolio and the service portfolio. Some people talk about applications and PM3, other people like services, SIAM, and also SOA, of course. The core here is actually the value streams that runs through the operating model, the value realization streams. And they can be divided on the highest level into three categories. On the upper left-hand side, you have the customer-facing technology, which is very key in the digital era. And of course, those demands and the development of those capabilities and the service mode of those capabilities are treated in a certain way. The traditional business process technology might rely on some more complicated ERP systems and benefits from other ways of looking at demands, other ways of looking at development, and other ways of looking at the run mode. And then you have traditional operational technology that also deserves a special version of the operating model. It's important to say that we need to respect the differences in the value streams and find versions in the operating model to address those differences. And as you can see in the slide, sourcing and optimization becomes a cornerstone because that drives the ecosystem of partners you have around you to be innovative, but also cost effective. And on the top side of the slide, you see strategy and governance. That is kind of the control tower for the operating model to drive operational effectiveness or excellence. If you open this one up a little bit more, I'll give you some more details. This is the second level of detail. And as I explained, the number of demands are different. There are basically 4 types of demands. And again, respect the difference in the different value streams. So capability planning is, for example, changing your finance system. That requires a bit of planning, and it has to put in some kind of priority to most of the time go into a gate-based steering model or development model. And then, of course, end up in a service mode. The reason for that is, of course, that if you exchange your current finance system, it has to work from day one. So the minimum viable product is very complicated, and there's very little room for quality issues or that you put lower priority on some must-have requirements. So traditionally, and actually also today, a lot of organizations like to have a gate-based model for a reason. Ideas and concepts are different. Most of the time, they are either smaller ideas and concepts that might be bigger. So they need another kind of qualification method for demand. Either they go up and are put in the gate-based prioritization engine, or they are more feasible for agile development. The reason for that is, of course, time to value. It also might be easier to put priority on some requirements and less priority on others. And the product owner as a role is the key stakeholder here, together with the DevOps teams. Increments and improvements It's smaller changes, not ideas and concepts, not capabilities, but it's smaller changes that most of the time could be put into the DevOps teams for high throughput, resource efficiency, and also high quality, considering that it's sprint driven. And then you have the service changes that are traditionally managed by the ITIL processes and then resides in the service mode. In the development, you can see that there are basically 2 tracks, but to be honest, there are actually 3 tracks. The gate-based model everybody knows about, and you can rely on models like XLP, Prince2, or what have you. It doesn't really matter. And some industries are regulated, like the financial services industry or pharmaceuticals, that has regulations that requires super strict development models for some platforms, not all, or for some services, not all. And of course, a number of iterations with ideas and concepts, increments and improvements, or service changes can be done in a DevOps environment. The interesting thing is that they can actually coexist. And Gartner calls this bimodal. So you need to be able to run gate-based, but you also have to accept that DevOps is here to stay. And the hybrid is, of course, also interesting. The third way, gate-based steering, agile development. And on the right-hand side, you have the classic service delivery part, which many people look at SIAM as a concept for that, or PM3 if you're looking at applications. Keep in mind the upper part of the slide where you see portfolios. On the left-hand side, you see the demand portfolio. So the governance body needs to have a full view of demands of the 4 different types. The development portfolio has to be transparent, so you understand what gate-based projects you're running and how the DevOps teams are working to have a reasonable utilization of your resources. And of course, in the run mode, the service portfolio has to be in good shape and transparent so that organization can work to optimize the service performance. DevOps is slightly different because what you build, you also run. So that those 2 portfolios goes hand in hand in that team. So to be able to run this kind of operating model, you need a number of capabilities. And the most important part is that the vertical demand is the business part of the operating model. So the strategic planning from the business side also resulting in an enterprise architecture, the service planning, the ecosystem development, innovation and concepts, development portfolio, analytics, and service portfolio, those areas are owned by the business. From the IT side, you have a strategic component with strategy and governance. In the center, you have the operating model with competence, roles, and organization, of course, which is then controlled by the scorecard and steering. But on the right-hand side, you see very important parts with integrated risk management, or GRC. And in some industries, as I referred to previously, financial services, pharmaceuticals, etc., that part is super complicated. Sourcing and optimization is not the same as purchasing. Traditional sourcing has been focused on vendor consolidation, negotiating large frame agreement, and cost control. The modern organizations are working with larger ecosystems. Some vendors are for high volumes and transactional use, and other partners are for innovation. Development, we talked about the 2 different tracks, bimodal, both gate-based and agile, and the hybrid of gate-based steering and agile development. Services, again, either you talk services or application, but those has to be controlled in a way that they live with the organization, have a strong ownership, and then perform according to standards. So a little summary, if you like the mindset, if you work with operational excellence, you need an operating model, and you need a number of capabilities. Some of these capabilities can be outside your organization with partners, others can be inside, but they have to reside in the operating model. Then those capabilities has to be divided into roles and responsibilities. And this slide is quite interesting because this is a subset of the standard roles, maybe the most important ones. And the black shapes are families. So for example, on the left-hand side, you have the family working with business excellence. You see the enterprise architect, you see the innovation lead, you see the service owners, etc. This family is working hard for business excellence. And the closest ones, for example, dev lead and dev expert, are working side by side with the red roles. And the green and blue roles are working with development, either enterprise development or digital development. Upper right-hand corner, you have all the different roles working with governance. And in the lower right-hand side, you have the roles working with service excellence. So you can take the operating model, look at the capabilities, map them to your roles and responsibilities, and drive your organization. Before we go into this one, I would like to go back to the homepage, please. So let me just show you briefly how you navigate in the web page. So as I showed you previously, this is the homepage of Business Technology Standard. In the introduction, you can read about the exact same thing as I explained today, with the mindset, the operating model, the capability model, and the roles and responsibilities. This is actually also possible to print if you like that, but you can also read it as a book with next article. And here's also the download. Of course, free of charge, it's open source. In the demand side, you can look at all the different boxes that was in the capability model if you want to know more. And I'll show you a little example later on. Same thing with the strategy and governance. You can see here how the strategy links back to the business strategy dimension. From a business vision, business strategy, business roadmap, and then it filters down into the strategic planning for IT. And then, of course, it goes down into the different portfolios and the different phases of the operating model. And there's a lot of details for you guys to read if you're interested. This is interesting. Since you in many parts of the operating model see a little circle, and that is called minimal viable governance. And you can, on the left-hand side of this slide, see the different kind of demands coming in, the capability, ideas and concepts, increments and improvements, and service changes. There are a number of questions you have to ask yourself before it goes into agile development. If any of these questions are broken, it has to go into the portfolio steering group. But if you have, for example, an increment and improvement, and when you look at that one, you realize that I do have the business sponsor at the table. I am within the budget allocated to my DevOps team. I do have the right people, resources in my team. I'm in line with EA. I'm compliant with regulatory frameworks as well as data security rules. I'm working with an approved vendor, and I'm using the agreed processes in the operating model. You're actually good to go to put that demand into development. If you break any of these questions, you have to go up to the portfolio steering for a confirmation that it's okay, and then it's going to put in sequence with other initiatives that are on that kind of magnitude that it breaks the minimal viable governance. As you can see under governance and roles and organization, all the different roles have a tagline, what they actually has as a purpose. And then the teams, the business excellence team, the family has a purpose and desired effects and measures and competencies. So what a lot of organizations do is that they build the operating model based on the best practice on managebt.org. They define their capabilities with their partners or in-house, and then they set up the roles based on the standard roles. The standard roles are too many, but a subset of the roles will definitely be relevant for any organization trying to be optimized. Of course, the consequence then is to drive org design, where you actually build an organization based on the roles and put positions and job descriptions based on that. And it's also linked to career models. So if you're having an internal career idea that you can actually move from role to role, but you can also elevate your competence and experience in a certain role, it's linked to an external framework also governed by an NGO organization. I would like to highlight the importance of IPR. In the modern world with modern sourcing or multi-vendor or ecosystem, the new thing here is that when you're working with innovative partners to bring business and IT together to get sparks and ideas for new capabilities, you have a need and a right to invite new vendors into your ecosystem. The key here and the lessons learned is that those agreements should not be focused on rates and volumes. They should rather be focusing on protecting the intellectual property of the innovation that you create as a joint venture with your partners. This is traditionally not taken care of by sourcing, but it has to be taken care of by modern sourcing. One concrete example is a lot of companies right now are focusing on innovations related to machine learning, AI, and RPA, robotics. And those things are today, there are very, very few partners that can do this in a professional way. So you need to rely on those partners. But what you actually create as a team with your vendor has to be your own IP. So that is a responsibility for sourcing. I would also like to show you that everything in here you can reach as shortcuts if you're looking at different kind of capabilities in the capability model. So there are hyperlinks in all these different parts for easy navigation. This is a new component in the model that was co-created with one of the key customers running the business technology standard as their IP. The reason for this initiative was actually that there were a number of projects that had a pretty strong and aggressive business case, and the business case kind of was approved in the early gate, and then it fell asleep and nothing really happened. So this concept here is designed and proven and built together with one of the key customers, and it's actually integrating the business case realization throughout the gates in the gate-based model, but it also works for the agile development part of the development cycle. So this one is interesting for you guys who would like to be more on your toes when it comes to realizing the business case promised in the early stages of the project. Yesterday, I met with 5 different CIOs, and 2 of them said that we're having such a big problem with compliance with regards to regulations. And I can really relate to that, and it's very important. It's actually stated by law. It's important that all of you guys who have strict regulatory environments make sure that the gate-based model is accommodating for those requirements. My background is within pharma, but also telecom, and I can see that the differences is huge. The regulations in telecom is complicated, but the ones in pharmaceuticals is a completely different planet. And it's not something that is invented here in Sweden, it's a global practice. So many of the systems and applications and services used in pharma are regulated, strictly regulated by GXP. And that is also true within the financial industry and some other industries. So all those parts are built in to the operating model, so you can rely on your current standards for compliance. So just to go back, if you think that there is an opportunity to modernize your technology backbone, if you think there is an opportunity to build a stronger digital frontline, if your CIO and IT department agenda is to transform business capabilities, there is some help in the operating model. There's a lot of help in the demand side with the different 4 types of demands. Of course, there's a lot of help in the development part with the bimodal thinking, with the hybrid of gate-based steering and agile development. And there's a lot of help to be found for application or service governance. And of course, surrounded by strategy and governance and sourcing as a helpful partner, finding the best partners for innovation and also the best partners for economy of scale. If you like that idea, that the operating model will drive your operational excellence, you can find the different capabilities that you need in your organization, both from a business side and from an IT side, divided by in-house and partner network. You can actually define all your roles and responsibilities, and of course, the families, the business identities, so you have a joint agenda serving the capabilities, the operating model, and the mindset. Janet, can I please have the next slide? Thank you. So if you think that there is a high market pressure to do more tech, and at the same time there's a high internal pressure to be efficient, there is an answer and there is a proven framework for this, which is free of charge, open source, run by over 200 organizations in the Nordics and co-created by these organizations. So there is no mumbo jumbo laboratory stuff in here. It's all proven frameworks and it works in reality. As you can see in the bottom side of the slide, it's built on established concepts with ITIL, SIAM, IT for IT, PPS, SAFE, service design. All those parts are in there. So what is standard on the market is standard in the operating model, and that's driven by industry desires. So what's on top of that is actually an easy to understand, both from the business side and the IT side and your partners. So it's easy to understand, easy to discuss, and easy to get a common language within your ecosystem. There's an end-to-end consistency and coverage. It covers everything from planning all the way to the service side of the run mode. So you have a consistent, cohesive coverage of all your processes that needs to be in place. And of course, it's aligned and pre-configured into the leading platforms on the market, as I said before, like ServiceNow, Workday, Salesforce, etc. So if you like, you can get a lot of help based on the best practice portal, managebt.org. If you would like to learn more or benchmark your organization and maybe find some bits and pieces that you find interesting or that you might want to learn more about, please give me a call or email me, and we have a predefined setup on how to do the benchmark and how you will learn more about managebt.org. And with that, thank you so much. We are now open for questions, and there is a little Q&A icon on the upper side of the screen, which says Q&A. There's one question here. Do you need to have an account on ManageBT? No, you don't. You can browse all the content for free, and everything is open. I think you have to add your email if you would like to have the PDF sent to you. I'm not too sure, but trust me on this one. We're not abusing your trust in learning more. It's all open source. Two more questions. Are there change cases or I guess customer cases that you can read more about? Yes, there are a number of cases. Some of them are actually distributed in the newsletter, and some of them I will be more than happy to discuss. As you probably understand, some is protected by NDAs, even though the entire solution is co-created with customers. Maybe needless to say, everything that is competitive or disclosed should, of course, not be shared and is not implemented into the open source. Next question. What type of organizations are best suited for this model? Well, it depends. I think personally I'm working with a large security provider with a couple of hundred employees, a couple of 100,000 employees in many countries globally. And then the model is stretched to its maximum extent, I think. The smallest organization is in the media industry that I'm working with, that has an organization of maybe a couple of hundred people, and IT is less than 10. So in that case, you need to be a bit clever and just pick the pieces that makes a lot of value at the moment, not going crazy trying to build a model for a 200,000 kind of company. Are there, this is crazy, are there training sessions on presenting this? No, I don't think so. There is a training for business technology leaders. It's called the Academy, and it's offered on the market. And it's actually on the homepage. So I think we certified, Janet, you know this better than I do, but we certified hundreds of people on business technology. But most of the time we run the trainings and the simulations, especially for Agile. We run that as part of an implementation project to make sure that everybody is on board in your organization, is able and capable of getting the value out of the operating model, so it doesn't become just a paper product. All right, hopefully you found that useful as the high-level presentation of managebt.org and also business technology. There will be more webinars, and then we're going to deep dive into the different components. We'll go through the demand cycle in detail, and also addressing the minimal viable governance in detail with some concrete examples and customer cases. Then we'll move into development and show you the differences between gate-based and agile, and the hybrid of gate-based steering and agile development. And of course, we will also present the agile simulation game. That is maybe a good start for organizations who wants to learn and start using agile methodologies. It's powered by G2G3, which is a well-renowned partner within simulation games. And then we will have a last session, or maybe not last, but a later session on the service side and SIAM concepts, which is a very forward-looking way at the run mode. With that, thank you so much for your attention, and also stay in tune for the next session. And please let me know if you need any more information or if you have questions. Thank you so much.